Hello, everyone. Are you guys excited? Yeah? So my name's Jason. I'll be your Amazonian moderator for today. So just quick two things. So for the format-wise, I'll be sitting here with Alexis doing a fireside chat, and then afterwards we'll open up to audience Q&A. So who is Alexis Ohanian? Alexis was born in Brooklyn, New York, but grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore, Maryland, where he slowly realized his desire to play professional football would potentially not pan out. So after graduating from the University of Virginia, he turned his efforts towards making the world suck less, his words. So in addition to co-founding Reddit, which he returned to in 2015 with his co-founder, Steve Huffman, leading what is now the fourth largest site in the US, he also co-founded Initialized Capital, which is a seed stage venture fund with over 160 million under management. He's also the best-selling author of Without Their Permission, up there, and an activist for the open internet. Please join me in welcoming Alexis Ohanian.
Thank you. Thank you very
Good
much
to see you, Alexis.
Jason. Good to see you.
All right, so to kick things off, we're just going to dive right into it. 2017 was quite a small year for you, uneventful, not many milestones. We actually have a few photos to take you back.
Great. I've not seen these before. All right, what do we got?
All right, so the first one.
That's 10.
You and your co-founder, Steve, up there. So you guys raised $200 million in new venture funding at a $1.8 billion valuation. Not too bad.
That's correct.
Not too bad. It gets a little better from there.
Well, and I have to shout out, though. Wait, hop it back. Oh, you can't.
I
got to give a shout out, though. In the last few years since returning, the team at Reddit has also grown dramatically from like 50 to 300.
Wow.
And so those are the people who really created all that value. But we're the ones photographed with the stuffed animals. So.
Did you keep any of those stuffed animals?
I still have one in my apartment. The rest mysteriously disappeared from the Reddit office. If you have one, please return it.
All right, so the next one, we got a little sneak peek, but you got married. You and Serena got married. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah? So if you had to describe, what was that day like?
It was amazing. It was chaotic and crazy and wonderful, and it was awesome. I wish I could relive it from all the perspectives of all the people who came, because I had my closest friends and family, and it was a really good time.
Yeah.
And got to marry that amazing woman, and it's been great.
Well, it gets a little bit better from there. This is kind of out of order.
It's all right.
But the next one, congratulations.
Oh, hey, Junior.
You had a new baby daughter.
That's my baby girl. Yeah.
So how's life been afterwards?
It has been awesome. She is everything, and now I feel like I have this thing that's so much bigger than me, because I as proud as I am of Reddit and all the VC stuff and any of the things I've created, like, it all frankly just doesn't feel as important to me now as my family, and it's really special. So yeah, I'm grateful. I also took full advantage of Reddit's very generous parental leave policy. So I'm also trying to lead by example. Not lazy. I really want to lead by example, because I want both men and women in the Reddit office to take full advantage of it, because it's important. And some of you might have read about the stuff that we went through with the after the birth, and I couldn't imagine going through that without having all the resources and all the support that my wife and I are lucky enough to have. And so I absolutely insist that every employee at Reddit takes full advantage of our policy, and I'm just a full evangelist for it. And what was most disheartening, though, was to learn from so many different people around the US in the struggles that they shared, because they didn't have a great parental leave policy at their company. And then also hearing feedback from people in Canada and other countries where it's a nationalized policy, and hearing what an amazing time they had because they were able to have this. And so I'm a huge proponent of it now. I was before, but now I can really say I've lived it. And yes, it was a really great year.
Nice. So tell us the story behind that doodle, because you do your own doodles.
Yeah, I created the snoo.
Yeah.
That's the Reddit mascot. Amazon, y'all got the smiley face. It's cool or whatever. But are there any plans to do like a mascot for Amazon? There is a mascot? What's the Amazon mascot?
We do have one. It's called Pecky.
All right. Now look, I'm not saying that the only measure of your mascot's success is how many tattoos people have of it. But I've seen a dozen Reddit alien tattoos in my life. I have not seen a single Pecky.
We could give you a sneak peek.
Where's Jeff? Is Jeff here? Obviously, y'all have had a lot of success, but I think not having a mascot has clearly held this company back. I did draw the first snoo when I was bored, senior year of college. We didn't even have an idea for the company or anything. I just knew we needed a mascot, and I wanted this little alien because I don't know, I just liked it. And we kind of made it work, and now it's a big part of the Reddit brand and identity. But I doodle a lot. Now we have much more talented artists at Reddit, so they do all this stuff, and there's a big redesign coming, and they've done a great job incorporating snoo. This was actually one of my last doodles. I don't know, I might have to hang up my my doodling wand. That sounds terrible. My stylus. I don't know. I just use my finger. I use a touchpad, so I'm.
Oh, you use your finger for that one?
Illustrator
Oh,
and a touchpad on my laptop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't say I was efficient, but it takes me 6 days, but it's worth it. But yeah, I like drawing. And if y'all want to talk later about the mascot thing, I can help.
All right, so that was 2017.
Yeah.
How on earth are you going to top it? 2018.
You know, I feel like I'm not planning on getting married again, and I've got to hold off. We're holding off on the kid thing for a little bit. So it's gonna be continuing to be a great husband and a great father. But from a business standpoint, I think the company Reddit is in such an amazing position, and that's actually in part thanks to you all. Congratulations, Amazon. We've had a really great few years now since coming back. Reddit is 13 years old as a website, but it's really about 3 years old as a company. When I helped bring Steve back as CEO about 2 years ago, he was like the engineering mind, the organizational mind that the company really needed, because we hadn't shipped anything really in about 7 years. We didn't have an app until a year ago, if you can believe it. And incidentally, my wife takes full credit for us having an app, because when we first met, she had no idea what Reddit was. Fine. And then proceeded, like a lot of people, to take out her phone and search the App Store.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she couldn't find an app for Reddit, and she called me on it, and she was like, "No, what are you talking about? You don't have a website. There's no app in the App Store." And I was like, no, trust me. It's a long story, but we just didn't have an app. It's gonna happen, I promise. And then, a year later, we finally shipped it, and she takes all credit for it. But we are finally getting our sea legs, and in the last couple of years, the business of Reddit has also grown significantly. It's 5x since we came back. And one of the big players here is actually Amazon. And we're technically an emerging platform. We're 13 years old, but really the business is only a few years old. And it's been awesome. Everything I've heard from our team has been effusive in terms of praise. And it's really exciting because Amazon was early in validating this ad product on Reddit. And they're doing so in a big way, because y'all are a very data-driven organization, which is awesome. And so not only were you first, you've been successful, and by being pioneers there, so many other people in the industry are sort of perking up to that and waking up to that. So it's been great, and I expect us to do lots of stuff. If we can create ads that our users like, that obviously make you happy because it moves product, it makes us happy because it brings us in revenue. It's actually this pretty special thing. So we want to keep leveling up the business of Reddit, and we've got big goals now that we raised that large round of funding.
Yep.
But I feel like we're in the best position possible to actually live up to that and do it.
Okay, it's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, hold on.
Reddit take off.
And
Hold on to this rocket ship.
We've got like I said, you mentioned at the start there, according to Alexa, which again is a great traffic ranking product, 4th largest site in the US. And really the team that we've built around it it's still small relative to that, 300 people. And so there's still a lot of room for growth. And I'm not saying necessarily you should come work at Reddit. But if you like great opportunities. No, I'm not going to come here and just, I'm not going to try to take talent. But we're pretty excited.
All right, so shifting gears to the book, Without Their Permission. For audience members here who have yet to read the book, how would you describe it? What's your synopsis?
I wrote the book that I wish I had I wrote the book that I wish I had read when I was in college. Because back in 2005, like, it just wasn't, starting a startup was something that few people talked about and even fewer people did. And we were lucky enough to hear Paul Graham, who would go on to start Y Combinator. We heard him speak up in Boston. So we were going to school in Virginia, and our senior year spring break, we were the only kids. Was that a Wahoo Wah? Wahoo Wah, there we go. It's a UVA thing. They were the only kids who weren't going to Mexico for our spring break. We went to Boston because we heard this guy talk, and we pitched him on the startup afterwards, and he actually gave us really great encouragement. And we said, well, damn, maybe we could actually do this. And for me, writing the book was a way to share not only the origin story of Reddit, but the origin stories of a lot of companies that I've been lucky enough to sort of be around near the ground floor as an angel investor or as an advisor, or just as a friend. And then I went to 82 universities over the span of 5 really long months and just spread the gospel. Because college students have this really unique time in their lives where they hopefully don't have too much responsibility and can actually just make things and find potentially their future co-founders one day. And I just wanted to indoctrinate as many of them as possible with this idea of entrepreneurship. So if you're all interested in, finding your own path, doing the entrepreneurial thing, you can BitTorrent my book.
So you mentioned Paul Graham.
Or Amazon, yeah.
All right, stick with me here on this question because it's a little bit long. So in chapter 2, you described the journey when you went to Boston to meet with Paul and the Y Combinator team. You got rejected. You got a call back from Y Combinator and Paul to come back, but only if you changed the startup idea.
Yeah.
So can you take us through that whole journey? What were you thinking? How did you come up with a new idea? Just take us back to that moment.
We were convinced we were going to change the world by letting people order food from their cell phone. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. It was 2005. There were no smartphones. There were restaurants, and there were phones. They weren't smart. And there were lines, and lines sucked. I know y'all know about this. Y'all got the store with no lines. Lines sucked, and we thought, we have phones, we have restaurants. Why don't we just text in orders so we don't need to wait in lines? And Steve, my co-founder, our CEO, brilliant guy, he proposed this, and I thought, dude, that's a good idea. The only way to make this better is to give it a name, like My Mobile Menu, or And so could change the way people ordered food forever. And so we spent our senior year hustling up and down Charlottesville, Virginia. You're laughing because you like the name, right?
I think it's pretty good.
And I'm telling you, tomorrow you're gonna be like, yeah, he was onto something. And I remember pitching it to all these little restaurants, and they were kind of like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Sure, let us know when you got a prototype. We started working on a prototype. And then that was when we met Paul, and he actually said he liked the idea. And he was like, look, these phones are gonna change everything. And this is before the smartphone, in our defense. This is before the iPhone came out. The Trio was like the smartest phone. And so we thought we were onto something, but it was only when we actually pitched them, like you said, that they rejected us. Now, we were already drinking at the time. We were prematurely celebrating. So we were already drinking at the time when they called us to reject us. So then we just started like misery drinking. And then the next morning, very hungover, that was when the call came. And it was Jessica Livingston, shout out Jessica, who was a co-founder of Y Combinator. She was the one who pounded the table and said, you need to let them in. And their idea is garbage. But just have them change their idea and we'll invest because we think there's something there. And bless her, like she made the call. She made the decision. Paul made the call and was like, hey, we still don't like your idea, but we like you too. And so if you come back, we'll fund you. And it doesn't matter what you're working on, just build it in a browser. And so we thought, all right, we'll take your money, sucker. And we went back to Boston, took their 12 grand, and then got an apartment and for 3 months just wrote code. And actually, for 3 weeks we wrote code and got the first version of Reddit up. And it looked, setting aside how Reddit looks today, it looked really janky, like really janky. But we got it online. We pitched it to a few bloggers and tried to get a little bit of traction, and eventually we started getting some users. And then about 3 months later, we raised our little angel round, and we're off to the races. And we had never really thought about Reddit as a business. We just thought of it as like something we could do that would hopefully keep us out of having real jobs. And so when we got the opportunity to sell a year and a half later, Condé Nast was offering me more, they were offering me more money than my parents had made their entire lives for 16, 18 weeks or months of work. It was crazy. We thought we were getting away with something. Now, incidentally, Condé Nast got a great deal. Reddit has grown significantly since we sold it in 2006. But no hard feelings. We were able to get the company independent again about a few years ago, so we're getting a second chance. But it was all that serendipity of a few lucky breaks, and really Jessica saying no, we believe in them, because if we hadn't had that conversation, we would have gone back to Virginia, and we'd been working on We would have struggled for a few years, and the smartphone would have come out. We would have still been working on except now it's an iPhone app. And I mean, there's like a half dozen corpses of companies that have tried to do this now. And I mean, y'all will probably just beat them anyway, the ones that are still around. So it just goes to show. I mean, this was not part of the plan, but I'm grateful it happened, because I certainly sure as hell wouldn't be on stage if we were still working on
Do you guys still own the domain?
As I said it, I was thinking about that, and I don't know.
I think you should.
I don't. Can someone's already registered it? If they're watching, they're just like, ha ha.
Put a big picture of Alexis.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if you want this domain, here's how much it costs. I assume someone's probably already squatted it. Oh well.
Yeah. All right. So staying on the book track, you quote Paul Graham saying that you must be relentlessly resourceful as a startup. So what's a recent example of your team at Reddit showcasing this relentless resourcefulness?
Oh man, it is every day. One of the areas that I think is really, I'm extremely proud of the team having pulled off in the last couple of years, especially happened in the last year. We have tried really actively to better build and manage the relationship with all of our users, but specifically our moderators. And when you're a company that's got funding or, just generates lots of revenue, it's really tempting to want to take a sort of easy pass at something where you can just throw money at the problem. And we want to encourage everyone to act like an owner. We want to encourage people to have this responsibility and sort of maintain that sort of scrappiness and resourcefulness. And so, when we were trying to figure out how to build this relationship, a very easy pass would have been like, oh, I know, let's spend a ton of money, fly in a bunch of moderators all over the country, bring them together for 3 days, put them up in hotels, basically do a really high overhead, high production value version of a sort of meetup event. But then the team saw their budget and said, okay, how can we be a little bit more resourceful about this? Yeah. What it turned into is a 5 or 6 city mod roadshow. And so we just said, all right, look, we can cut these costs down a ton if we just go to them. We'll find a casual setting in these towns. We'll go to secondary and tertiary cities. So we won't go to the LAs, or the Seattles, or San Francisco's where the company's based, or the New Yorks. We'll go to cities that are secondary or tertiary cities in terms of size, because one, it's an opportunity to talk to people who are not just in the major cities, but two, they're still central enough. Our mods are all over the country. We can still bring them together and just get feedback and have this relationship that's face-to-face, which will actually do a lot for our digital relationship to each other. And so seeing things like that and seeing that kind of culture still be there, even with 300 employees and a lot of funding, is heartening. It's going to be a struggle, though, because as we continue to grow, it's easier to be less resourceful, but I do hope it continues, and it was a great demonstration by our community team.
Gotcha. Okay. So another recurring piece in the book is your recommendation to keep a list of agonizing experiences because they serve as opportunities for innovation. So what's currently on your list?
Oh man. So right now I think I don't know, how many of y'all are speculating in cryptocurrency? Just by a show of hands. Okay, all right, so a decent number of agonizing experiences there in the last few days. I think right now we still have so many barriers to entry for regular consumers to see value out of blockchain just as a technology. And I think there are huge opportunities there. As someone who is fairly technically savvy, right? Like, I was caught in the trap that I think a lot of you were over the holidays when some loved one asked about how do I get a Bitcoin. And for some of the more ambitious ones, and disclosure, I was a seed investor in Coinbase, okay, disclosure.
Gotcha.
But like, I would help them set up an account. And even that was still a fairly daunting process, and that's probably the easiest way for anyone to do anything related to any bit of blockchain technology right now, which is absurd because the potential for it is much bigger than just, can I buy a Bitcoin? And so I think there's a ton of great businesses that are gonna get started now that are gonna be building these protocol layers on the internet that are gonna let people build on top of it to allow for user experiences that are a lot more seamless and actually like useful to the average user. So that's where I see the biggest, like, there's a huge opportunity there if we get it right as a sort of technical community. And that's where I'd be looking the most.
Okay, interesting. So do you still keep that list? Like a
Literally?
paper? Yeah.
I have, well, it's not a physical list.
Oh, it's all mental?
No, it's in notes. Oh. It was in Evernote, but then I was having all these syncing issues, and I was like, Evernote, what the hell? Like, come on, you've got one job.
Yeah.
Sync your notes. Does anyone else have this? And then I was just so frustrated. I was like, come on, man, it's just text. Like, I don't even have a bunch of photos or videos in here. It's just, this should just happen.
Yeah.
But now I'm between Windows and a PC, and so the notes doesn't, like, because iCloud doesn't transfer over, so now I'm just back to square one. Does Amazon have a notes app that is cross-platform yet? Soon? You've just shipped it right now? Okay. All right, it's out. It's live. You can find it.
Well, is there anything on that list that you recently crossed off? Because it got fixed?
Because it got fixed?
Yeah.
Come back to me on this one.
All right.
Hold on. No, come back to me on it.
All right, we'll circle around on that one. Okay, so another piece in the...
Oh, actually, y'all did this. Okay. So I think there's so much... actually, one of my partners at Initialized is fond of saying that most AI pitches she sees are more artificial than intelligence. And she's so perfect. It's so right. And what I love seeing are these applications that are actually like really effing useful because they're really narrow and focused. And so I would say self-driving cars is a big one because we were actually one of the first checks in Cruise back before it got bought by General Motors. So like in 2011, Kyle Vogt was just a buddy from Y Combinator who was starting this self-driving car company. And he was like, good luck, dude. It's gonna be a research project, but here's a little bit of money and maybe one day. And now, of course, we've seen this glut of self-driving innovation, and it's spiking wildly. But also, I mean, y'all got robots minding the stores here. I think that, here we have this, it's basically like you're crossing off my list. Because we've seen, there was all this middle technology that wasn't that great, but it was good enough. That was like self-checkout.
Yeah.
And it was good enough, like it was a Band-Aid sort of solution, but it wasn't what we really needed or what we really wanted. And what this took was some really thoughtful, smart application of AI and some computer vision to actually build, I don't know exactly how it works, but like my hunch is it's based on those things, to actually build a solution that for consumers was just really useful and really worked. And kudos. I mean, it's gonna change retail. And you know what's crazy? I talked to retailers, C-level folks, right? Who have no idea, who are still sleeping on you all as a brick and mortar retailer. You know what they say? I don't know if y'all hear this. I don't know if they're this candid with y'all. With me, they're like, Amazon doesn't understand brick and mortar. They've never understood it. Yeah. That's just how I assume they talk. They'll never understand it. They don't understand. What we have is a brilliant understanding of how things need to be placed. Do you understand? Like where it matters. And they're so fixated on this idea that because they've been doing this for so long a certain way, it's surely the only way that one could do it. And there is, it's gonna be, it's gonna be brutal because there is zero appreciation, and it's gonna happen like this, because consumers, as you all know, I mean, we will gravitate towards the best possible outcome for ourselves. We're very selfish, and I think they're putting way too much stock in the affinity we have for like stores as they used to be, because I mean, most of the stores I go into, like the few times I do actually want to talk to a human, they're nowhere to be found, let alone like a credible, helpful one. And there are way more efficient ways for that to be done. And that's not to say removing humans out of the equation entirely. That's just being way more strategic with what they're doing and having actual experts there who can provide value that maybe a human or a robot can't totally do. But it's exciting. But it's also, I think, it's a little unsettling, and it's representative of the fact that as much as technology has changed people's lives and entire industries, and I'm guilty of this myself, we take for granted the fact that we live in the places we live and work with the people we work with, who are all sort of thinking along these lines. There are so many industries that still have so much to be changed, and there's very little. These discussions don't happen there. The perception is just totally different, and I don't know. It's a great responsibility we have too, but that's a whole nother.
That was good. You could feel the passion.
Yeah, no, dude. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, right? Because if you're thinking, okay, this is the last thing, right? Like, if you really think about the people who have if we all believe that technology is going to have a transformative impact on society, on industries, on everything, and then the people who are able to affect that change are small percentage, right? They're the people who are lucky enough to be in this room. Part of it's a life lottery ticket. Part of it is just, getting into programming. There's a bunch of different factors, right? But like the people who are actually the creators and improvers of technology are a small portion of the population. And what's like fascinating is, because of how highly levered technology is, this small portion of people in like amazing buildings like this can have huge impacts across industries and society. And that was the other reason why I wrote the book, because I know we need to have more people in these buildings from more walks of life with different backgrounds, because we've always had a gap in this country, and it is only going to get bigger as technology changes, and I think by and large improves things. But for you to be someone who could work at Amazon is going to matter so much, because if you can't, the roles for you in the society going forward are going to get more limited and more narrow and more restricted, whereas those of us who are lucky enough to work places like this and be a part of this industry are going to continue to grow and succeed and be able to do all kinds of amazing things. And we need to get that right. Yeah. That's what we're going to solve today here at this Amazon Fishbowl.
I think we could do it. We'll do like a 30-minute session, hackathon. Okay, so looking back now, would you make any changes to the book?
Yes, I would have told everyone reading it to just buy a bunch of Bitcoin. Page 1, buy Bitcoin. Done. So I haven't, it's been a few years. I don't like fall asleep every night reading my book, but if I were to remember what was in it when I was, I'm sure there'd be a ton of things I would change. I'm sure there's a ton, when you read your own writing, even like a day later, let alone years later, you like cringe at certain parts. I know there'd be a bunch of things I'd cringe through. I would fix that. But the biggest thing would be, I would want to encourage even more, with even more fervor and gusto, becoming fluent in technology in whatever way that is, whether it is programming or whether it is design or whatever your route into this industry would be, because it is becoming more and more apparent just how big of a deal that's going to be. And when I'm thinking of a kid who's in college, probably looking at a ton of student loan debt right now, that they arguably kind of got tricked into by society, it's going to become more and more important for them to have the skills they need to find the jobs in this new economy, and or create them themselves. and technology just ends up being it's core to whatever it is going to be now. Even if you're an artist, right? If you want to be a creative for the rest of your life, you need to understand these platforms because they're probably going to be how you make your living, whether it's YouTube or Patreon or Kickstarter or any of these, or I don't know, just asking for Bitcoin donations. Like there is going to be technology as a thread through whatever you want to do.
Shifting gears to Reddit right now, what are your top 3 most exciting projects that you're working on at the moment?
Well, you know what? Probably the number one is helping work with our best partners about trying to figure out the awesome shit that we're going to do together in this year. And some of those are BD relationships, and we've got an awesome BD team that works out these big partnerships. Part of these are actually a sales conversation about trying to come up with campaigns. Because ads are actually engaging and interesting on Reddit, we can do things that other platforms can't because people spend minutes, not seconds, on our ads because they want to comment or they want to engage. And no one wants to do that anywhere else on the internet. And so we want to do things that delight our users and also delight our partners. So that's exciting. From a product standpoint, I don't know if y'all heard, but the site is getting redesigned. The desktop Reddit, yes, is getting redesigned. We've been testing the hell out of it for months, and that's going to roll out this quarter. And I know this is Steve's pride and joy, because it's basically our fault that Reddit was so ugly for so long. Take full responsibility for choosing Verdana as a font. I don't know what I was thinking. I was young and impressionable. Yeah, it was a youthful mistake. But we're getting that right. And we're not going to sacrifice, don't worry, we're not going to sacrifice density or the principles of Reddit. Like, it's still going to be an aesthetically clean site. It's just going to look modern. It's not going to look like it was made in 98.
Can you give us a sneak peek?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I should have shown you all. I've got a screenshot for you. There's a screenshot. We're going to tweet it. I'm going to tweet it out.
Okay,
right?
We'll do that.
I'm going to actually, you know what? I'll post it on my Reddit profile. And we'll post it afterwards. You can follow me. I'm nothing, KN0THING. You can see the redesigned version.
Okay.
So it's gonna look good. It's actually gonna look good.
All right.
And then there's another thing which I can't really tell you all about, but it's gonna be really cool. So, I mean, basically just stay tuned.
Just keep visiting the website and app every day?
Yeah, it rhymes with cryptocurrency.
All right. So looking back at all the years at Reddit, what's your favorite failure, and what did you learn from it?
Wait, my favorite?
Failure.
Failure?
Yep.
Oh, man. That's twisted. We've had so many doors closed in our faces. This was, I'll give you a super early one and then a more recent one. Super early one, that would have been when Yahoo had us fly out to their offices. This is like a year into Reddit, and we were so hyped. And Google and Yahoo both flew us out. Google basically wanted to acqui-hire us, which was pretty rad. We turned them down, but it was like, oh my God, Google. This is Google 2005. So they were just like the hottest thing. And like, then we went to Yahoo, and they had just changed to purple. That was their big thing right then, was they just switched to purple. And we met with this executive there, and he sat us down, and he was like, tell us what you're working on. And I started explaining Reddit and went through some traffic numbers. And he was like, wait, how big is your traffic? And I repeated myself. It was small. We had tens of thousands of users. And he just looked at me, and he looks to his subordinates, and he's like, you guys are a rounding error compared to Yahoo. What are we even doing here? And I'm like, you invited us. Is that what you do here? Is that you invite little startups and then just shit all over them? Your purple walls and purple mugs.
I do remember this in the book.
You remember? Yeah, and it's true. But I put it on the wall. It was on the wall of negative reinforcement, like literally on the wall at the office. You are a rounding error. And I used to love looking at that. I get so much motivation out of it. And then, I don't know, about a year ago, we passed Yahoo on Alexa. And I smiled because I was like, thanks, Brad. Sorry. B. Horowitz. No, it's too obvious. I was like, thank you so much. Like, that motivation helped so much during the tough times, and I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful for it. And I think you find, if you scratch enough under the surface, I think everyone's got those stories of the haters, of the whatevers, with whatever it is you want to do. And I hope you'll find whatever, hopefully healthy way of dealing with that. In my case, it was putting it on the wall. But I hope you'll find that, because it's helpful motivation when things are going bad. But in terms of more recently, one of the things that we found time and time again is that we're still learning how users are going to use the platform. That's one of the best parts about Reddit, is we created some basic tools and some basic functionality, and just have given that sort of opportunity to users to kind of come up with better ways to use it. We've had a number of really successful April Fool's Day sort of things. We don't just do pranks, like we build product. And even from the ones that have been less successful, they have borne amazing stuff. One of the most successful ones was probably Place, r/Place, and we saw it was 1 million pixels and crowdsourced art. It was phenomenal. Over 3 days, people made this massive canvas of beautiful art. A year earlier, we had this chat program called Robin, and the same guy, Josh, who created Place, also created that. And it basically paired 2 random people into a conversation to chat. And if they wanted to, at the end of I think it was a minute, they could either continue the chat and add 2 more people who had asked to continue the chat, or say, nah, we're cool, and end it and start anew. And it was a weird social experiment. We didn't give any guidance other than here's how it works. And the end result was we learned that if you have a chat room full of a few thousand people trying to keep a chat going, it's actually just a mess of content. There's not, basically, you get to a certain point with the size of a chat room and then just everything falls apart. Yeah. And I think, I love Twitch, obviously part of the Amazon family. Part of that chat is not about, but it's not about discourse, right? In the case of Twitch at scale, chat is really just like being in an auditorium or a stadium and hearing a bunch of people scream. It's not, when you're in, where do the Seahawks play? CenturyLink. When you're in CenturyLink, right, and the 12th man is doing their thing, you're not actually listening to every distinct little conversation. You just want to feel like there's a ton of people all screaming. That's what Twitch chat is. That's what chat at scale is. It's not about conversation, really. It's about feeling of scale. So we did this sort of chat experiment. Didn't really go like we had hoped. It wasn't this amazing social masterpiece. But lo and behold, you may have seen we rolled out chat pretty recently on Reddit. And it informed a lot. Yes, Reddit has chat now. It informed a lot of how we built that product, because we now had a real experiment at scale of what happens and where these conversations tend to break down. Because our users were actually in the April Fools telling us explicitly, nah, we're done, we're out. And so even in things like an April Fool's prank, we find ways to learn and inform later product. And it's something that I really hope we can preserve as we grow. Because again, we're still only 300 people, and I hope that culture can persevere.
Yep. So talking about retaining the culture as you grow. So at Amazon, we have 14 leadership principles, such as customer obsession, bias for action, earn trust. What would you say are Reddit's principles?
Well, we have values. We don't have 14. I mentioned act like an owner.
Yep.
We're trying to actually find ways.
Ownership is one of ours.
Who copied whom? Remember the human is probably my favorite, which probably aligns with the service. Now, we're not an e-commerce company, right? We're not not to say that it's obvious, but it makes more sense for an e-commerce company. The reason it's a tenet for us is, well, one, it was always sort of a part of the Reddit ethos of remembering the human. But 2, because we have a community platform. And so a lot of the work we've done in the last few years has been building a trust and safety team, building out and staffing up our community team, building an anti-evil team whose job is just purely to thwart assholes, and then building tools to support those teams to do their jobs. Because at the core of all this, we want people to feel safe. We want people to feel free from harassment on the platform. And we know it's never going to be perfect, but it's an arms race we want to fight and start fighting now. Well, really a few years ago when we came back, so that as we keep growing, we're prepared. And so remember the human is one that I think comes up time and time again in product decisions, in sort of community, and those sorts of decisions. And then also, frankly, just around the company. Like, it was really heartening that one of our employees surfaced that a user basically found out he was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, and created a bucket list. And on that bucket list was a bunch of things, one of which was like have a pillow fight. and one of our, not executive employees was like, took ownership of it, reached out, organized for this young man to come to the Reddit offices, have lunch with Steve, meet a bunch of the team, have a big pillow fight on the roof. And this was a thing that like technically cost the company money and time in the sense that it wasn't delivering anything, from a brutal capitalistic standpoint to the bottom line, but mattered a lot because it was a chance for people in the company to actually meet someone who really appreciated Reddit, who found a home on Reddit. And it was such a perfect example of Remember the Human that like I hope that one sticks around. I hope when we have a dozen or more, that's one that's still a really important part, and that's someone who's not an executive can make a decision like that and have it be something that everyone in the company embraces.
I like that one. So last two questions, and then we'll open it up for audience Q&A. One of the most enduring and popular things about Reddit is Snoo, the mascot. Yes. We have a few images.
Snoo art? I'm serious. We're going to get Amazon a mascot by the end of this. Can I see photos of this purported Amazon mascot too?
Well, if the PowerPoint does show up, we have a bunch of Snoos from like, oh, there we go. Hey. So there's, you have a lot of variations. Tyrion might be one of my favorites. What's your favorite Snoo?
Thank you. The Serena Williams Snoo, of course. Dodged a bullet there. Nice job with the trick question.
All right. All right, so last question, and then we'll take audience Q&A. Are you going to write another book? When can we expect it?
I don't know. Should I write another book, everyone? We're going to decide on Amazon. If you all convince me to write a book, can we just put it on the #1 list on Amazon for fiction and nonfiction and romance and whatever, I don't know, graphic novels? Let's just put it at the top of everything. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think I have any good stories to tell that I haven't already told in some form. And I feel like, though, I'll tell you the one thing though that I've really been fascinated with has been, I'm lucky for a lot of reasons, one of which being I have a front row seat to a really amazing human being, which is my wife. And as someone who also obsesses over, to a certain degree, like self-improvement, it's been really interesting, obviously, getting to know her. And it's been fascinating to see the things and the routines and the stuff that it takes to be really great, to be truly, truly great, the greatest. And not that this is necessarily a book, but this is the kind of thing that I think like Malcolm Gladwell would write something about. But the thing that I found that's been really interesting is the tech industry, we're really good at sort of deluding ourselves in a lot of ways. And one of which being this sort of work ethic around technology and founders. And I mean, most of I live in my little tech bubble, right? And so most of the people I think about when I think about technologists and sort of great aspirational figures, sort of comes with it this idea of a certain work ethic. And I honestly thought I was like the hardest working person in the world until I met my wife. And what I've come to realize is the level it requires of you, both physically and mentally, to do it in sport is another level in business. Business feels like like elementary school in comparison to a college education. Because look, at the end of the day, we can delude ourselves on success. We have metrics, right? We have share prices, we have valuations, but those are kind of, to a certain extent, okay, certainly in the private market's made up, but they're also fairly apples to oranges, and our individual contribution to those things is very different, right? How much credit do you really give? Look, Jeff's a great guy, but there's a certain amount of credit goes to the CEO, but then there's a fuck ton of credit goes to all the people who make this stuff happen. So the accountability is not exactly perfect. And like I said, in business, it's easy to sort of delude yourself with numbers. And it's also not really a terribly level playing field for lots of other societal reasons that we can talk about. But in sport, like at the end of the day, y'all are on the same field. I'm not going to talk if the Patriots are on your field, they're probably cheating. But in theory, I guess depending on who you're playing in tennis, they could be cheating too. The important thing though is
but that
normally,
would be beneficial for you, right? If that,
I suppose. Yeah.
Usually yeah.
But the crucial thing is, you're right. There is a winner and a loser at the end of the day, and you are judged purely based on a set of criteria everyone's agreed to, and you're either the winner or the loser. Yeah. And then on top of that, you have to do your job in front of a ton of people. And the mental pressure of doing that. I mean, look, Jeff's a boss, an amazing, amazing tech leader. But like, I mean, if he had to live stream his whole life of in those meetings and doing these business decisions, like that might suck. There are gonna be times when on top of all the other pressures you have to face, like having that damn camera on you is the last thing you want or need. And so I was already a sports fan, although not a tennis fan. I was already a sports fan growing up, but the level, like I said, the sort of level that is required personally to be great there is just another level from business. So I know y'all should be very proud of yourselves at Amazon, but if y'all want to have really exceptional careers, go be athletes. That's the moral of that story.
All right. So we have 3 mics up here, so feel free to walk up to one of them and we'll call. Mic number 2. Please state your name, which team you work on, and then your question.
Sure. Hi, Alexis. My name is Matthew Chartier. I work on the Alexa comms team. My question
is... Can we communicate more about Reddit's Alexa ranking? 4 in the US.
I actually work with the other Alexa.
Oh,
I'll try to pass it on.
Can we talk about that branding situation? Okay, yes.
I'll run it up the chain.
Okay.
My question for you is, in the early days of Reddit, what were some of the big ideas that helped you gain traction and start building up the core of an active and engaged community?
Oh, man. This is going to disappoint you. Our big idea was faking users. And so for the first few months of Reddit, it was just me and Steve, and then 2 of my good friends, Morgan and Connor. Shout out. Actually, Connor lives here in Seattle. They were the only ones who actually used the site other than us. And so we just had to fake users with different usernames. Now that was, again, this was 2005, there was no social media, like there was no real way to there was no product hunt. There was no way to get users to try it out. I think it's less of a necessity today, but the same principle to take away would be basically spend time using the product, especially if it's a community-based product, and sort of create the culture yourself first that you want to see. Hopefully you won't have to fake hundreds of users. But there are other hacks to doing that, right? There are ways to incentivize, say, developers to build on top of Alexa. And I'm sure you've got a whole team that thinks about that sort of thing. But like, be willing to roll up your sleeves as an owner and do that work. I mean, that was nostalgically some of my favorite work to do, because that was the closest I have ever been and will ever be to our users, because there was a point where I actually knew everyone on Reddit. It was only a few months, but like I knew everyone. And I was like, oh yes, Fluffy Bunny's 16. Like, yeah, like that was not a real user, although maybe someone's looking at it right now and hopefully there's nothing bad there. But you gotta be willing to roll up the sleeves and do that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Mic number 1.
Hey, Alexis.
Hello.
It looks like we have a picture of Pecky for you.
Thank you.
Actually, his full name is Mr. Peculiar.
Stop it. Stop.
You'll notice he has the Amazon smile.
All right, Mr. Peculiar and Snoo might be cousins, which is cool. But we can work on this. Why Mr. Peculiar? This is a whole nother meeting. Did Jeff approve this personally?
So at Amazon, we have a very peculiar culture. That's what makes us different.
Says Mr.
We're peculiar.
And why is it Mr. Peculiar?
Because he's different.
I know. Okay. Just for the record, though, Snoo is genderless, and because Snoo is a canvas, and you can be whatever you want to be on Reddit. So there you go. But okay, we should sort out this mascot thing, because I'm telling you, this is what's holding Amazon back.
So my name is Aaron, and I'm an engineer in AWS. And I wanted to talk to you about, the recent election and the fact that we have an upcoming election, another very large social network has been called into question about the role it plays in society when it comes to things like addiction and echo chambers and all these sorts of things that are actually, turns out, not great for revenue and great for the markets, but not so great for people and society and community building. So you touched on it a little bit about what you're doing on removing harassment and removing the unsafety or less safe things, but how do you see yourselves not falling into the pit that Facebook has fallen into with sort of those other, like I mentioned about addiction and echo chambers, and because obviously Reddit, around the subreddits, there's lots of communities where people are going to have the same opinion and are going to just kind of go and use a term that is commonly used on Reddit. So
yeah, it is.
So yeah, what will make Reddit successful? Do you think doing that?
I think. So we have always tried to walk this line, and it's one that we're always going to have to be adjusting for. We literally have a meeting about this every month within the company between trust and safety, policy, me or Steve, community. Basically, there's a representative from every team that's in some way touches our users directly, as well as execs. And we talk about our policy just broadly, and what has come up in the last month. What are the trends that we're seeing in these very nascent communities? The one advantage, the gift and the curse of Reddit is it's the one social network that's actually built around interest groups explicitly. It's like the way you use Reddit is unlike every other social network because you're really subscribing to a community of people. You're not following an individual, and also thus not just like sharing content with your followers. And so there's a slightly different threshold. The good part of it, the gift of it, is you have these really vibrant communities that when you get exposed to them, offer you perspective that is representative of not just an individual, but of a community that you wouldn't necessarily have a window into. I think of examples all the time from LGBT communities on the internet. There's a Muslim community on the internet that taught me about the hijab emoji, which was a campaign I got really behind because I was like, fuck, there's a ton of these women that want this emoji. And then it actually happened because this young 14-year-old made it so. That we get windows into because community hierarchy actually helps a lot to self-identify and create communities of interest. Now, we talk about a community like the Donald. We talk about communities where you basically have moderators as well as users who are walking right up to the lines of policy and will consistently, we'll have intervening one-offs where trust and safety has to do a thing, or there's always this pushing up against the boundaries. And when it works well, it helps us, and when I say us, I'm talking about myself as someone who is, I've lived in cities my whole life. I am the coastal elite, right? And it helps people like me understand that there are lots of people in this country who feel a very different way about the world and how things are going. And I do think that is a good thing because otherwise I would rarely have a window into this. I saw this from time to time while I was crisscrossing the country on that college tour, but I don't get exposed to it in my everyday life because these aren't the communities that I'm a part of. They're not my friends from high school or college or in San Francisco. And so I think that awareness is good. The problem that we have as a society is we've now just accelerated this collision of sort of cultures and communities thanks to social media. And I think part of it's just a flaw in the human system, which is we as humans aren't used to having. We've spent lots of time evolving where our communities weren't bigger than we could walk to. And now we're being confronted with communities that are very, 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 very different. And we can't even agree on basic facts. And so I hope that we can be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Part of this is in how we recommend new communities to users and how we put content in front of users that perhaps exposes them to different ideas that can change their view. And I do think this can work. In fact, if you know the Change My View community, there's literally a community on the internet with hundreds of thousands of users who are actively saying I believe in X, change my view. And the comments and the discussions are actually really thoughtful and actually really valuable. And I think it was Cornell did a study on it for a few month period and actually found that a third of people changed their view. So you can actually go in the flare and basically say okay, you convinced me, my view has changed. And some of these things are basic, I like smooth peanut butter, change my view, to, those are heathens, so I think we can all agree. to really, really contentious things, like really contentious things, and actually get reasonable discourse and thoughtful stuff bubbles up, and actually sometimes people are willing to have their view changed. So I think when it works well, it works in a way that I've just never seen offline or online, which is really special. When it works poorly, it creates an echo chamber where we get things that are not good for society that are normalized. And so that's why we have those regular reviews, to try to figure out where we can be so that we can at least give people an opportunity to have their view changed. And I think that we've definitely already sacrificed a certain amount of growth because of the way our site has always worked. These other platforms always worked because if you made some content and all your followers really liked it, a bunch more of their followers would see it and it would go viral. Reddit required a community to say, yeah, this is cool, and for it to actually be seen at scale would have required a ton of people to be subscribed. It's like the very nature of Reddit kept a ton of things from bubbling out of their echo chamber, but those communities do exist. And so we know we'll spend the rest of our careers trying to figure this out. But we do feel like we have an advantage just from a product standpoint, as well as a team building standpoint, because look, we had 6 years away to see what was happening on the rest of the internet and then come back to this thing with fresh eyes, even though we knew it really well, to come back to it with fresh eyes. And I hope we can get it right, because we have to. And I hope we as a society can figure this out, because we really, really have to.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to mic 3.
Hi, Alexis.
Hello.
My name is Honey Butter Chicken Biscuit.
That is my alt account, and I know that's why I know you're lying.
Unlike Mike's 1 and 2, I have 2 very short questions.
Okay.
1, what is your favorite subreddit?
Children falling over is pretty good. I'm a new dad.
Which one was it? What did you say?
Children falling over.
Oh.
But I mean,
Nature is Metal.
I like, you know what, I also during football season normally really like r/NFL, but I'm so over it right now. I don't know what to think. I mean, Blake Bortles, really? I mean, it was a nice surprise. I appreciated that, but I just don't even know what to think anymore. So yeah, animals being jerks is another good one too.
That's a good one, yeah.
And then there's animals being bros, if you feel like you've seen too many cats being jerks.
Second question,
Yes.
can we get your face on the screen so we can take a selfie with you?
You have to ask the camera person.
Camera?
Hello.
Can we do it? I'm guessing we can.
Nope.
There
We
you
do
go.
have that technology here at Amazon. All right.
This is open to everyone, by the way. I don't want to be the only one.
Did we do it?
Thank you.
Did we do it? Did it work?
Nice.
Other
I like
people
that.
in the audience are now taking selfies with the giant head.
Can you go over a few minutes?
I can do whatever
Okay.
y'all need.
All right. Well, we'll finish off the rest of these.
Okay.
Mic number 2.
Hey, Alexis, Christopher, real quick here. You were asked some difficult social questions, had some good answers, but they're a bit cream puff, so I want to go a little bit harder.
Great.
And noticing the Jordan Lowe's in the backyard one-on-one games, who's taking the W, you or Serena?
Wait, in basketball or tennis?
Hoops, I would assume.
Oh, definitely basketball is going to be me.
Take that.
Look, I'm not. I was not great at basketball, but I played it as a kid growing up.
Sure.
I was, let's say, good enough.
Yeah.
I've got the height advantage, and actually her free throw is pretty bad. It's actually comical. I'm sorry to put you on blast like this, honey. Like it's so wonderfully humanizing, because it's like this one moment where you're like, you are a human being. Okay, you are human. So yeah, her jump shot's not very good. I think I'd win because I got the size, and I'd go right for the basket, crash the boards.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, anything else,
Cool.
I would be crushed.
Thanks.
Well, can you return one of her serves?
No, God, no. Are you kidding? No, I never picked up a racket, and then on the sly, this was a few weeks ago, I had her hitting partner. I was like, Jameer, dude, also UVA grad. I was like, dude, man, can you teach me just like a little tennis? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so I've now hit a ball over the net a couple times.
Okay, there you
We're
go.
starting to
Okay.
get that. He taught me how to hold the racket and sort of hit things. But my plan is I'm going to have him secretly teach me how to serve. This is going to take probably a couple years. It's the long con, okay? This is what being married is all about. And I want to learn how to serve really well, or at least well enough that 2 or 3 years from now, I can really just sheepishly be like, hey, so, let's play. Let's play. I'll serve first. And she will be so shocked by the fact that I could get the ball over the net with a good serve, she won't think to react. I'll get my point, and I'll walk away. And I'll walk in, I'll just be like, injury, like her side just can't, that's all I got. And then I can lord that over her the rest of our lives together.
You need to videotape that one too.
Yeah, oh, believe me, there's gonna be, I'm gonna have a lot of witnesses for that,
Mic number 1.
Have a notary, sign the documents, okay, yeah.
Cool. Hi, my name is Mickey. I'm on the pickup team. I'm an engineer. So I just got back from San Francisco, and among the topics sort of casually discussed at dinner tables were brain-computer interfaces and mind uploading. And I'm curious if you think that, obviously Elon Musk has this Neuralink company, and he's actively pursuing this sort of thing.
It's bummed I didn't get to invest.
Would you connect your brain to a computer directly? And do you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely, but I wouldn't be the first 1,000. I'd say first like 100,000, or somewhere like after the first 100,000. I think my buddy Gary Tan is he loves the brain-computer interface thing. Like in case any of you are working on brain-to-computer interface startups, he's really hot for it. I absolutely want to live in the Matrix. I'm not worried. I'm okay. I'll be the guy eating the steak. Ignorance is bliss. That's fine. Look, I'm not worried about Skynet. But I feel like this is still a baby step on the way there. And yeah, dude, if I could fire off that text without having to take out the phone, if I could have that next level of frankly artificial intelligence working for me whenever I needed it, like yeah, I'd do it. I mean, would I use it to probably play like Angry Birds most of the time? Probably. But I want it. Yeah, I just don't want to be first. Yeah.
I'm curious what it would feel like.
This is why we got to talk to Elon's startup. And I was genuinely bummed that I didn't even hear about it until it was already funded. Because like I think what's been really encouraging is after a bunch of companies that just helped people waste time at work and built a better fabric of community, we're now seeing a bunch of companies get talked about and get funded that are trying to make huge leaps in technology and innovation, whether it's private space travel or letting people skip grocery checkout lines. No, but I do think, this is where, when we have such brain power and we have such an opportunity, like I love seeing technologies that are going to help hopefully affect tremendous change in the world. I just hope this stuff doesn't get locked up to the 1%, because our shit's already pretty good. But we'll see.
Mic number 3.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexis. My name is Brian Kelly. I'm a recruiting coordinator in worldwide operations.
Oh, really?
So kind of just looking back I looked over your Wikipedia. It said that you graduated with a degree in commerce and history.
Yes.
So without having a degree in computer science, how did you overcome that hurdle of not having the coding skills to create a deliverable product early on? I guess that's assuming you didn't have those skills already.
I rode Steve's coattails. That's mostly true. I was a programmer. I was the kid in my high school. We had one Pascal class, and I took it 3 years. I just took it over and over again because I was just like, this is great, I love programming. And I was taking community college classes to get a little Visual Basic in me, because you never know when you're gonna need Visual Basic. And some Java. And so I was programming, and then I met Steve, freshman year at UVA, who he is a computer science major, and within about 12 hours realized that I sucked. And it was like, it was really, I think it was humbling, but it was also really good, because I was good enough to get his respect, that we could talk. I mean, we talked about the gaming rigs we had built. Like we could at least have conversations about technology, but it was clear I was never going to do it for a living. And it's actually, I mean, if I could do it all over again, I think I would have spent way less time in the library studying for my business and history classes, and use that time to just be developing myself as a programmer. I'm grateful for my education in history. I think it helped me to learn to communicate and take big complex ideas and distill them down, and I think it's helped me a lot. But even more of a foundation in programming would have been so much more helpful. But yeah, for the first version of Reddit, I just did the HTML and the CSS and like a little bit of JavaScript. But the first version of Reddit was also written in Lisp. So Steve tried to teach me that, and then 72 hours later, I just quit and said, I'll just go back to drawing the mascot. Division of labor.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
All right, last question, number 3.
Hey, my name is Aaron. I'm a developer under the Balance team in retail systems. And I know that a lot of projects start small and you never plan for them to explode like they did. And I'm sure you created Reddit with a very honest, very pure intentions. But as it has grown, it's been exposed to more and more people, and people come from all walks of life. And Reddit has now become very similar to the freedom of speech movement, where lots of people have lots of things to say, and not everybody has something nice to say. Over the years, how has it felt to have something that you created be used in maybe ways you don't agree with? And there have been subreddits that have been pulled from the front page because their content is not necessarily helpful or informative in any way. How have you dealt with the fact that what you created is not exactly what it is today?
Well, I think, so to a certain extent, anyone who creates anything has to come to terms with the fact that when they release it in the world, it's no longer theirs, even if they're like an artist or whatever. But as the creator of Reddit, it is definitely frustrating to see it used for things that I don't personally agree with. I mean, on some level, I felt like Reddit had made it when I got my first, I'm Armenian, when I got my first hate message about the genocide. Because I was like, hey, we're big enough now that there's some angry Turkish people on here. Like, that's good, right? And yeah, I mean, it is certainly at times very conflicting. The thing for me is there are more of those times when I feel better about humanity that make up for it. Because I really do believe with this front row seat to 340 million people every month for 12 years now, I really do believe most people are fundamentally good people. And we know even from a data standpoint, like the sad truth is the teams that work on anti-evil and trust and safety and even community, the number of users they actually have to deal with who are bad actors are such a small percentage of the overall users of the site. On the one hand, it's encouraging because it's like, okay, most people are actually reasonable people, but it's also depressing because you have to spend such a disproportionate amount of time with some just very, very, very motivated people who aren't that big in numbers, but have a lot of time to spend. And I do think that, the net reaction or the net result is going to be a positive one for the world, but it's one that we need to just be ever, ever vigilant about. And the progress that the team has made in the last 2.5, 3 years has been really, really great. And we've, I think, benefited a lot from watching other people's missteps. And like I said, the benefit of coming back was seeing this thing that we know really well, but with sort of the outside perspective. And I mean, we've took the anti-evil team, even though the name is kind of funny, like, that was started by our first hire, who is, Chris Lowe, who's our CTO, is one of the smartest people I know. We had such brain power and work ethic solving these anti-evil problems, or at least working towards solving those anti-evil problems for years since we came back. They could have been working on engagement or revenue. They could have been working on the things that startups are supposed to focus on, but we made that short-term trade-off because we thought it was going to be worth it in the long term to get these things right, or at least work towards getting them right. And though we'll never be perfect, like I still believe in humans, and I still believe that we can toe this line where not everything is acceptable. Or Reddit has a content policy. There's a bunch of stuff that you'll be banned for, and we've got an anti-evil team that's going to make sure that you're never going to be able to come back. But we're willing to toe that line because the moments of humanity, the moments of just two random people who know nothing about one another other than they both love like adding cereal to their milk instead of milk to their cereal, which is fucking weird, but it doesn't hurt anyone, and I'm glad that they found each other. Like, connections that are made there on Reddit are more meaningful than so many of the connections we have offline. I mean, people connect with total strangers on Reddit in a more intimate way every year for Secret Santa, powered by Amazon, than they do people that they've known their whole lives, right? Than people they went to college with. They spend more time picking out a thoughtful gift for a total stranger than they do their family. And it's because there's this real sense of connection and community, and that's special. Like, that doesn't exist anywhere else. And so we're gonna fight for it, and it's gonna be a fucking lot of work, but we still think it's worth it.
It's got to be tough building that customer trust, because a lot of what Reddit is would not be worth anything if there were people running around editing comments or silencing people or doing any number of things that could break trust, and then people would no longer 300 million people who are trying to say what they want to say would have a hard time coming to your site to do it. So it must be a delicate balance.
It is. It absolutely is, and we're not perfect, but we're definitely always trying to improve. That is for sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome, thank you. Well, that's a wrap. Join me in thanking Alexis Ohanian for our latest Amazon Fishbowl. Thanks, Alexis. Always a pleasure. Thank you.